Hi everyone, and welcome back to Call Sign Charlie Models for part 5 of the Jetmads 148 P2V-7. Finally, the replacement part has come in. The tail section has arrived, so now I can get rocking and rolling on this kit and finish it up. So for part 5, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be adding in the horizontal and vertical stabilizers, all the windows, the lumps and bumps, sensors, antennas, and all that, the mad boom and tail section, and then after that we're going to get the fuselage all together, make sure that we don't have any seams that we need to take care of. I did do a test fit, and there is a little bit of a step. I'll show you that later on, and then after that's taken care of, we'll get the wings on, and then it will be prime time. So I'm going to get the camera turned around so we can get rocking and rolling on this fuselage section of the P2. So 1 second. Alright, so I'm back, and let's take a look at what all we're going to be taking care of during this part of the build. So first, we're going to be adding this window in. It says it's NA for schemes number 7 and 8, but we're doing, I think it's scheme number 3 or 4, so we don't have to worry about filling and sanding this part right here. Then adding in a couple lumps and bumps and sensors back here and on the belly and midsection, and then adding in clear parts. Then it has a nice little cutaway right here so you can see how the windows go in again. So, and then after that we'll be adding in the tail boom / MAD, the magnetic anomaly detector, and then we will be adding in the horizontal and vertical stabilizer. Now with that part, what I'm thinking about doing is I'm thinking about closing up the whole fuselage, getting it all together, making sure that I don't have any seams that I need to take care of when I just have it as a tubular section. It's easier to maneuver around with. So I'm thinking about doing that first, and then going in and adding the horizontal and vertical stabilizers, and then the wings. And then once the wings are on, it's time for prime, because I already got everything else done. I just need to do a little bit of sanding on the jet pods. There was a seam line in the middle that I still need to take care of, but I'll get that taken care of in about 15 minutes. So other than that, that's everything that we need to do. Like I said, we're going to be doing scheme number, I think it's 3 or 4. I'm debating between number 4 VP1 or number 2 VP69. So I'll have to, it might come down to a coin flip on which one I do here. So, because both of them have different attributes. This one has a nice little shark mouth on the jet engine for the intake area. I think that's a pretty cool touch. And then a red nose on this one, and red tail fins on the wingtip pods. And then on the next one, pretty plain, but it does have the prop cones do have a nice little paint scheme to them. I think I'm kind of siding with this one more because I prefer less flashy models. So I'm not one that does the tiger meat scheme and all those. So I'm more leaning towards the VP1 Streaming Eagles as well. So alright, so let's get to rocking and rolling on this. I'll show you a quick test fit between the rear fuselage and the front section, and it is just slides on. I got some sanding to do right on the leading edge right here, the connection point, and then it just slots right in. I said there's a little bit of a gap / step right there. Yeah, you can see it, but that's an easy fill You got to be careful with filling this. I'll probably use the Perfect Putty for filling, so I don't have to worry about sanding and losing any of that rivet detail right there. But then again, I gotta sand down this leading edge, this connection edge right here, because there are some the 3D print supports right in there that you won't be able to see on camera, but you can feel them when you rub your fingers over them. And then your tail section, this was from the original box. There is a little bit of a crack in here, but that's an easy fix. It's still there. I'm going to come in with super glue if I'm not trying to break it again. Come in with super glue from the underside to make sure it sticks, and then I'm going to sand it. I might do a little bit of putty over it just to sand it smooth so it doesn't show up. Some nice little rivet line or panel line down the middle, and some rivets that go all along here. So, and then on the back side, if it's, again, I need to sand the connection area, but again, perfect fit alongside. Fuselage lines up perfectly, everything. And then we'll figure out which mad tip we're using. One of these, it might be this one or this one, we'll find out. And then you'll see all the fine, like right there, the windshield wiper blades, very small and very fine. Those are being painted separate. I'll cut those off at the very end. And then all of your antennas, your pitot tubes, they're so small and so fine. And after I get done with all the sanding and get the wings on, that's when I'm going to attach all the antennas. That way, less likely to get knocked off. So I'm going to get off it here. I'm going to do the sanding, like I said, on the front section here and the front section here. And then we are going to start attaching these windows. These windows, they look nice and clear. Alright, but looking closer, there is a little bit of distortion in the windows. But like I said, you're just going to be looking at them. There's nothing to see through them on the other side. This top window is the same thing. I mean, there's no distortion to it really. This is probably the best window out of the entire kit. So, alright, I'm going to get off of here. I'm going to start rocking and rolling with these parts. And then I'll be back in 1 second. Alright, just a quick thing. To get these windows in all the way back in this fuselage, what I'm doing is I'm using a very long toothpick attached with some blue tack at the very end, and the window attached to blue tack, and I'm just going to slide it in through the fuselage like so, get it in position, and then get it in place, hold it there for a second while that dries. Let the super glue do its job. 1, 2, 3, and then we're just going to roll cotton. Oh, nope, that didn't work. Well, let's try this again. We're going to add some on edges here. Alright, I'm going to let that set. See if that worked this time. Gently pull that off. And it is, that window's in there. get a, see if, I'm not going to be able to reach out with the cotton bud. But what I'm going to do after I'm done, I'm going to take a Q-tip and I'm going to tape it onto the end of this stick and then wipe it off on the inside. So, and then for the other window, just take my scissors. I'm going to cut it off the sprue. This resin is super thin, so it's easy to cut off, and I want to use these trimmers or scissors, so that way I'm not risking cracking the window. I got that done. Do a quick little sand to get it in the extra parts done. I'm going to do a test fit on the other side. Okay, that fits perfectly. So come in here with the super glue. Get around the edges over here. Then also on the edge of the inner edge of this window, just a little bit right there. And we're going to come in here with the window. So, find it, press it, hold it for a second, let it do its job. And that should be good enough, so now we just roll it off. Alright, so we got the windows on. Now what we're going to do is we're going to clean up the blue tack. Got a Q-tip and we got some tape. Tape it there, and then we're going to tape it on the back side. Alright, that's good, and then we're going to hit it with dip it in there. It's just some, to me, acrylic thinner. Blot off the excess on my sleeve. And come in here. We'll just clean up any residue that was left by the blue tack. Let me find that Q-tip. Where'd it go? Here you are. That's all done. Windows are all done. And that can go in the trash. These are the two windows that go on the upper hatch of the cockpit. They look very nice. These won't be taken care of until the very end because they get glued onto a different part. So I did do a test fit of the vertical stabilizer off camera, and again, fit looks pretty good. Just a little bit of a seam back here, easy with perfect putty to do, and again on the other side. And we're going to be using the 2-part epoxy for all these heavy parts that go on. So we're going to let that dry for a little bit, come in here. I got the super glue already out, so we're going to come in on the inside of the seam here and make sure that's a good solid, because we don't want it moving around any. Then I'll come over here. I'm going to hit it. All the way to the end. Let that set for a second, and then we'll come in with the sanding stick and knock that down real quick. Alright, so next up I got some lumps and bumps to add. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lumps and bumps to add. So we got this big guy right here, this guy, and then these two guys, it looks like. And then C42, which would be, nope, that's A. Then these two smaller guys right here. So we'll get all those added on, and then after that's done, I will be back to chat with you in a second. Alright, so I got the tail section, the Mad Boom, drying with the 2-part epoxy right now, and I just wanted to kind of hit back on something that I mentioned on a previous video about the landing gear and the strength of it that I was kind of worried about. And they, like I said before, they do include 2 sets of landing gear. This one here, and then this one that I cut off the sprue or the print block. And this one does have a, I don't know if you can see it, but there is a metal rod that goes in through the middle. So there is support on that landing gear. And I'm not sure if it's on the nose landing gear, because it is all the way through on the nose. Let's see if we can find that. Yeah, so on the nose landing gear, doesn't look like it has a metal support, which is kind of sad, because that's where all the weight is in this kit, is up in the nose, where you put all that ballast in the radar dome and underneath the cockpit and around the nose gear bay. So that's one downside, I think, of this kit so far. I'm not sure how strong this is going to be, especially this part right here. This is going to be kind of weak, so we'll see how it holds up to the weight. But yeah, I just wanted to hit up on that because I mentioned that in a previous video, and I wanted to hit that the tail landing gear does have metal core in it, so that should hold up that part very well. And then the nose gear, we'll wait and see on how that goes. But like I said, there's a lot of weight up in the nose because of all the ballast, so we'll see how that goes. But as of right now, I got the nose section dry, or the tail section drying. It's been sitting here for about 10 minutes now, and it's almost good enough to cure. And up next, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be mixing some more 2-part epoxy and getting the forward fuselage section attached to the tail section, and then that's probably going to be it for the day. I'm going to let that set and dry overnight, and then tomorrow we'll be checking the seams, doing all that, masking the windows in the back, and then attaching the horizontal, vertical stabilizers and wings. So I'll be back in 1 second once I get the forward fuselage sandwiched in. Alright, so we got the fuselage together and glued in. The 2-part epoxy has had overnight to cure, even though it only needs about an hour to fully cure. I let it set overnight, so it's nice, good and solid. This side of the fuselage is almost flush right here. Just take a little bit of a sanding down. Sad because I'm going to lose some of these rivets here, but this side looks good. There's a little bit of a step on the top, won't take much, just a couple hits with the sander. And then over on this side we do have a nice little step that I'm going to ramp up from the fuselage right here. So I mean, it's not too bad of a fit. And then on the bottom, we have the Bombay area. There's a gap right there. I'll fill that in with some putty and get that done and sanded down, but there's no detail that I'm going to have to worry about losing on that part. So looking like it's going to be a beast of a kit. Measuring in around almost 24 inches is 23.5 inches roughly. And then on the tail section for the Mad, a little step right here. Zoom in on this. Little step right there. Nothing too noticeable. And then on the other side, pretty flush. But again, now that I've zoomed in, yeah, you can see that step on this side. It's about maybe a millimeter step. I'll be using the Tamiya putty for the step, and then for this side, I'm going to use some glazing spot putty, Bondo. It's real easy to spread on. I'll show you how to real quick. I need a piece of cardboard. Here. I'm just going to take a little bit off here. This stuff sands down. It's really nice. This tube is almost empty. I got another one, but there we go. Then I have a bottle of old Tamiya glue that I use. It's a separate bottle, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip this glue in here. Get a nice little chunk of it after it softens up some with this Tamiya glue. This works good for non-load bearing seams. Just keep on mixing it in. There we go. Got enough. I'm just going to spread it over this seam. And this is the stuff I used for the A6s. When I filled in all the rivets on the A6s, I use this because it sands down easily. Takes about an hour to fully dry on here. So we got that side. Top side, I'm going to use the Tamiya putty, the white type. Just going to grab my toothpick here. Grab a little bit off the toothpick for the small seam area, because there's not much to this area that needs to be done. It's the other side that is going to require a lot of work and a lot of putty to ramp it up. So we'll get this just along here, and then on the other side I need my sanding stick. Alright, so for this side, we're going to have to ramp it up, and what I'll do is I'll just add putty all in here. Along this side, and then after all this is done, I'll come back in and I'll rescribe the panel lines that were lost. Trying to make it, build it up in layers. And extend the ramp out enough so that way it doesn't look like just an odd hump, and try to give it that try to make the raise to it so gradual you can't really tell. I'm just adding putty all over this side. Yeah, I'm going to lose these first couple lines of rivets, which is sad, but I'll make do. And then let's see, so I'm going to let that dry, and then for the bottom here, let's see, trying to think of how I'm going to do this. I think we're going to use the perfect putty because I don't want to have to sand in here. Sanding won't be too bad. We're just going to fill this gap in. Alright, so we got the putty on. We're going to let all that dry for a few hours at least. Then we'll come back in, we'll start wet sanding everything, get that. This will be nice and easy, blended in, along with this top side as well. There's not much to it, just that little step. This side is going to take some work. We'll get that all sanded out and then blend it in, and then work on from there. And then after all the sanding's done, I'll start masking off all the glass, and then we'll be attaching the vertical and horizontal stabilizers, and then the wings. So I will be back with you in just a second once we start sanding. Alright, so we're back with the Neptune, and the sanding and rescribing is all done on this fuselage. So as you can see, there was a little bit of ramping that needed to be done, and I did lose one rivet line that's right along here, so I think I'm going to be okay with that. And then on the other side, same thing, just a little bit, and then rescribed these these panel lines all in here. So there's a little bit of putty in there, but you can still see, and they're deep enough so they will take a wash when it's all done. So up next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some 2-part epoxy to attach the vertical stabilizer, and then move on to the horizontal stabilizers, and then let that set good and overnight. And then tomorrow what we'll do is we'll attach the wings, and then we'll let that set good and overnight. And then after that, all we gotta do is attach all the antennas and such. I wanted to get to a point where I can put it on the jig and have it sitting off the ground here before I attached all the antennas and such, because I don't want them to break off. So I'm going to get off of here. I'm going to mix up some Bob Smith Industries 2-part epoxy. We're going to get this horizontal stabilizer attached first, let that set, and then come in with the more 2-part epoxy and get the other horizontal stabilizers in. So those will probably take the rest of my morning session at the bench, and then after that we'll let those set and dry overnight and come back tomorrow and attach the wings. So I'll be back in 1 second with all the with everything done. Okay. Alright, so I'm back with the excuse me, Neptune build. Got the horizontal and vertical stabilizer on. Alright, and those are nice and strong and cured. Do have a little bit of putty to do back here, and then the same on the other side, and then along the front right here on the vertical stabilizer, a little bit of putty. And all I'm going to do for that is I'm going to get some perfect putty. I'm going to fill in that gap, and then with a wet Q-tip after it dries, I'm going to come in there and wipe off the excess, and that will be all ready to go. So moving on, what I'm going to move on to are the wings. The wings are all set. Everything, it looks a little bit rough right now, but once I get some paint on it, it's gonna clean up real nice. And then, so got all that done. The undersides, again, with the flap well detail, just amazing detail in there, along with the gear bays. Definitely gonna have to put a mirror under all of this so you can see the gear bays, the flap bay, the bomb bays, all that, because the detail is just too good to pass up. But doing a quick fit check on the wings, they look pretty good. There's a little nub on the end. Let's do a quick see if that helped any. A little bit. So yeah, I'm just gonna have to come in again with some perfect putty, which is real easy to do, and fill that seam, and that will be done. And then with the other side, get the other wing on. Other wing fits about the same, a little bit of putty on it, but that'll work great. And I mean, you guys can kind of start to see the size of it. This is looking amazing. And what I'm going to do for the wings is I'm going to use the 2-part epoxy on there. Actually, what I'm going to do first, before I attach the wings, is I am going to mask the searchlight dome on the outer wing pod of the starboard wing, because masking it now is going to be a lot easier than when it's actually attached to the fuselage. So I'm going to get off of here, I'm going to get this masked off, and then I'm going to get the wings attached and secured. I'm going to tape them into place using leverage to get them and stay in place, and then I'm going to let that set overnight, so that way I know tomorrow when I come back and I'm working with the antennas that the wings are good and solid. I don't have to worry about them coming off. So I'll be back in 1 second when all of that is done. Alright, so the wings are glued on and I got them taped into place. So I'm going to let this set overnight, let it really cure good and hard, and then after that we can remove the tape. And I'll take care of the seam lines with the perfect putty on the wings and all the stabilizers, and then after that we're just moving on to the antenna. So I'm gonna, like I said, it's gonna be overnight for me, but just a second for you, and then we will keep on trucking with this and hopefully finish this tomorrow on the build portion. So I'll see you in a second. Alright, so I'm back and I got everything almost ready. I just had the antennas to go on, and we'll go over that here in a second. But to catch you up, I got the Jetmads, I got the putty done on all that, so filled that putty. Then there's crack right there, and then there's a little bit of a seam right here, and I got that filled with putty. I still need to clean this up, and then on the other one, same thing, a little bit of putty up here on the pylon, and a little bit at the engine. So to clean this up, it's the perfect putty. So I take a little bit of water in this cup right here, and then a cotton bud, and I just wipe off the excess. So all I'm going to do here is wipe it off, just go across it. It's dried, completely dry, and just come over, and all the stuff that I want to stay in will stay in that little crack. And that one's done, and there is a little bit of shrinkage in there, so it's still going to show a little bit of a seam, but it's not going to be that large gap that was there before. So, and this, like I said, is super easy. Do not use this on any like load bearing portions because it will crack, but this is perfect for wing roots and those type of areas because it's real easy to clean up. You don't have to worry about getting into a tight angle to sand it. So that one's all done. Put that in my little bin of paint separately, attach at the end parts, get that off to the side, and then we'll take a look at the actual Neptune. So Neptune looking very, very good so far. Let me get a good grip on this. It is very, very nose heavy because of all the weight that was added up forward, which I think was maybe a little bit too much weight, but it's what the instructions called for. So all the wings are attached. Again, I use the perfect putty along the wing roots right here. Got a little bit of cleanup to do. I'll give this thing a denatured alcohol bath or isopropyl alcohol bath before I put on any primer, just to make sure that we have good adhesion for the paint. So I use the Maskol liquid mask for the dome up here because the tape I had originally just would not stick. So, and then showing the underside, again getting this rotated around, all very good on the underside. Just need to finish masking off the landing gear bays. They're the plugs that they have that come in the kit, they work, so I'm just gonna put those into place when I start paint, and then I'll put some masking tape over the flap wells. But as for right now on this kit, all we got left to do are the antennas. So go through the instructions real quick, take a quick look at those, and there's a bunch of little bits that go on here. Starting off with this page, we have some static discharge. It says they're in there, but I don't see them. But what I'm going to do is I got some lead wire that I'm just going to cut off and little strips, and then I'll add those to the aircraft at the very end because it is very easy for those to break off. So we got all those little static discharge along the vertical and horizontal stabilizers, and also along the mad boom right here. And then we have an antenna about mid fuselage and a couple other stacks, but that's only for scheme number 8, so we don't have to worry about that one. And then your windshield wipers, we're going to get those cut off, but we're going to throw them in the bin that gets painted separately. And then your pitot tubes on this instruction right here. So that's all we have to do for this step. We have a couple more steps. We have a couple pieces to add it in, C60, 62, and 47. This is for your whip antenna that goes across the top of the fuselage. I'm going to be using Easy Line for that antenna, and that will be attached at the, it'll actually be probably the last part that goes on this entire kit. And then moving on to another step, we got 2 steps in between. Step number 46, we add these antennas on the very bottom. So we don't have to worry about this one right here because it's only for scheme number 4 or scheme number 15, but we have a couple more to add in all along here. So I wanted to make sure before I added these antennas in that I had it up on the jig, so there's less of a chance of them getting snapped off. So, and then after that's all done, the build is done, and I just need to mask off the flap wells, give it a isopropyl alcohol bath, and we are ready for primer. And once all the build is done, that will be the end of this part of the build session. So I'm going to go ahead, pull up my instructions right here, and then we're going to start off with all the tiny ones. I might have to go off a camera for this because these parts are really small, and I'm going to have to get very close. I'm going to have my optivisor on to get in there and see the, so let's see, this is block number C. This is where all the parts are. So we have 60, which is over here. It's that tiny piece right there where my index finger is. And then let's see, C59, which is right next to it, another tiny antenna. And then a couple other pieces that go on the nose. Your pitot tubes are up here. See if you can see if it'll zoom in or focus on those, so you see those. Alright, and then just to give you a reference of size, I don't like when people say this is the size of my hand and compared to my hand, because you don't know how big that person's hand is in comparison to it. I mean, it could be a small hand, it could be a large hand. So cotton bud, we all know the size of those, and that's the size of that antenna right there. And this little piece right here, that's where your whip antenna goes into, and that is about, yeah, not even a 1/16 of the size of a Q-tip cotton bud. So all very small parts. I'm gonna actually go off camera. I'm going to break out my optivisor so I can get up and close and personal with this guy and get all these parts attached. And after that's done, I'll be back to show you. I'm going to have it all cleaned up for you guys and then probably masked off. And then that will be the end of part, I think this is part number 6 for this build. So I'll be back in 1 second when all of that is done. Alright, and we are done with the build for this P2 Neptune in 1/48 scale from Jetmads. Got the build portion all done, the antennas are all on. Only one piece popped off, but then I was able to replace it with another little, luckily it was just a thin rod as an antenna, so I used one of the extra sprue, or not sprue, the 3D print supports as a replacement part. So got that done. And then I was going to mask off the flap wells, but like I said earlier, that you can't really tell if they're white or the light all gray. So I decided I'm just going to go with the light all gray, and then I will repaint the detail on the wires after that's done. With it on the jig, it's actually pretty easy to get to, so it's not that bad for a repaint on that. I do need to run to the store. I need to get some white glue, some Elmer's white glue, so I can just, I'm going to put a quick drop on the 4 corners right here, and then drop in the landing gear doors, just as a paint mask for when I'm painting, and it makes it a lot easier to mask off than having to go in and tape everything off. So that fits like so. That gets it pretty good. If you were to use this might be the wrong door for the wrong side. Let's see if they're... Alright, yeah, so that was... Nope, that's not right either. Flip it around. Alright, so there we go. Yeah, and I mean, it looks, it's going to mask off, it's going to block off the main part of the landing gear well, so don't have to worry about masking all that off and going through a whole roll of tape trying to get that masked off. And the same with the nose gear and the opposite landing gear well. So, but I'm going to get some white glue. I've got to run out to the grocery store real quick anyways, so I'm going to get some white glue while I'm there. I'm just going to drop it on each of the 4 corners. Let that set, and then after I'm done painting, I can come in with a pair of tweezers, pop it off, and there won't be any issue there. But other than that, yeah, so the antennas are all on, the pitot tubes are on. I'm trying to be very careful, but this kit is so heavy. The pitot tubes up here, very, very thin and done. And then flip it over onto the, where it's right side up. And you got a couple more antennas right here, along here, and then you have this cable holder. So the whip antenna is going to go from this little piece right here that's on the tail. I don't know if you can see it. Maybe you can see it. Yep, there it goes. Now you can see it. So got an antenna, an easy line that's going from there. Then it goes to about halfway, and then there was going to be a little piece that went into this hole right here, but that popped off into oblivion, and it was literally the size of a pin. I mean, it was not, maybe the size of a toothpick tip. So it was not big at all. So I'm just going to drop that line into that hole, put a little white glue over it, and then repaint that with the black for the antenna receiver, and be done with that. And then up here for the final part of the antenna, you have this little piece right here, and it's got a little hole in it, so you can feed that antenna in there, and it's going to be a real nice touch. And then the extra pieces, and then this antenna on the nose, and then there was a hole for another one, but that's for one of the other options that I'm not going to do. So I filled that in real quick with some perfect putty and some super glue, and we are good to go on that. So again, I'm gonna do another wipe down with the denatured alcohol, just to make sure all the dust and everything is off, so I don't have any issues with masking off and pulling off paint. But it shouldn't be an issue either way. So this part of the build, super fun. I mean, this is probably some of the most fun I've had in a build in a long time, because it actually required modeling. It wasn't like a Tamiya kit where it's a shake and bake, where you just basically drop some glue in the box, drop some paint in the box, stir it all together, and then boom, you got a kit. No, this actually took some modeling to get done. So I'm really enjoying this kit. It's time to get some paint on and bring this thing to life. And yeah, so this is the end of part 5, and looking forward to part 6. Like I said, part 6 we're going to be working on paint, decals, and a little bit of weathering. So this was a land-based aircraft, so there won't be much weathering to it. Maybe some exhaust streaks down here along the exhaust, and a lot of the weathering will be done in paint by when I black base and do some mottling on it, just to break up the monotony of the paint. So that will be the majority of the weathering with that, and then maybe a panel line wash for the main weathering of this kit. But other than that, that's about it. I'm not going to go overboard with fuel stains and chips and all that crazy stuff, because it was a land-based aircraft. They were able to take care of it very well, so I'm not going to go overboard on that. But there is going to be a lot of paint going on and a lot of masking, like up front with the nose you have the anti-glare shield, and then each of the sensors, the tip of the sensors are black. The antenna, the top is white, but the antennas are still black, so I'm going to have to mask off all those. And then the engines, the panels around the exhaust are aluminum, but everything else is painted with the gall gray. So it's going to be a lot of fun masking off and getting everything done and painted, and this is really going to come to life when it's all painted, and even more so when the decals are all on it. And that's the other question, is how are these decals going to go? I've never used Jetmads. I don't know how they go down, so that's going to be a learning lesson, because I also have the Jetmads AJ37 Vigan that I'm going to be doing in the future as well. So, but again, really fun. Love this part of the build, and we're just going to keep on trucking on, and hopefully we get this done by the end of July, or hopefully by the 3rd week of July, so I can take this to our club meeting. That would be top notch right there. But anywho, thank you for watching and going along this journey with me. I hope you continue on with the journey. It's a fun journey so far. And don't forget, if you're new to the channel, to like, share, and subscribe. If you know somebody that might like this, share it with them. And until next time, stay frosty, my friends.